Yo, yo, it's your boy AO. Another episode of Lakers for Life Live. Haven't been on live for a minute. Got some news about LeBron. Uh, get some thoughts out on the Milwaukee game over the weekend. And just getting some thoughts overall on Lakers basketball. It's been a very, very interesting time. We've gotten off to a hot start, ended the road trip the way we needed to, which was a good thing to see. And there were some interesting games in that, or interesting things in that Bucks game. So if you drop into this live, please, subscribe to the channel, like, and definitely drop your comments. And let's get this conversation started. So the Lakers, after a rough game against OKC, turned to the Pelicans and the Bucks for the final two games of the road trip. And I always said in the lives, it's about the response when you go down or you lose a game, you lose badly, whatever it is, the response is what counts. So OKC game, threw that away. How do we respond and close out this road trip? Got out to a good start, saw some good things against the Pelicans. And, won handedly, a bit of a comeback here and there, from the Pelicans, but I thought we commanded that game. Now we get to the Bucks, much more of a difficult matchup, I'd say, versus the Pelicans, who were depleted. We kind of let back into the game, couldn't rest our starters, but hey, Bucks, I think, was another good measuring test to, close out this road trip. So how we went into that game and how we responded, I thought was going to be very important. And we get the news that Marcus Smart and Rui Hachimura are not playing, and that Bronny James was going to start the game. So already you're kind of like, JJ, really? Like this is the play you're going to put in place while Rui and Smart are out. And I get it, Bronny gives you some semblance of, what Smart can do, granted at a very different level. But we move on. And, the Milwaukee game was really, contingent on, ensuring Austin, Luka, and DA all had good games. And they did exactly that. We started off a bit slow, 4 turnovers. And you're kind of like, oh, man, are we really going to do this again? And we're going to let Milwaukee get off to a hot start. We're not going to come engaged. Went on a big 18-2 run. Milwaukee couldn't even score for 7.5 minutes in that second quarter, up by 30 at the half. And DeAndre Ayton played amazing. I thought he had a fantastic game, finishing the roles. Milwaukee was showing a really weak blitz against Luka, and he was shredding them apart. Austin, I thought, commanded the game from the start to finish. He was the best player on the floor, played with pace. We did let Milwaukee get back into the game in the third quarter. They got it down to a lead where it was kind of like you forgot about we were up by 30 points, which is something I didn't necessarily like. We get into the habit of not being able to close out games strong, having to expend energy, keep our players out for extended periods of time to close the game out. And that's what we saw. Luka and Austin went out with 3 minutes left in the game. But I saw some interesting things. And again, guys, if you're getting into the chat, we're going to get into the LeBron stuff, just recapping the weekend. And we're going to talk, LeBron James. But to finish off the Milwaukee game, I saw some pretty interesting things. One, Thero played. And I thought he brought a lot of activity, just movement. And it was refreshing to see. And I hope he gets minutes moving forward. Vando had a season low in minutes, 8, I think. And it had a lot to do with Thero getting some minutes and us playing a double big lineup with Maxi Kleber. And I thought that was an interesting look. He looked all right. He showed some movement too. He made it 3 in the game. And I think he gives us a very interesting look, especially when he's alongside Hayes. He really helps space out the floor versus Evando. You have to kind of close out on him. He can make the three. And I thought it's a look that, in certain matchups, I think this is something we can continue to see. Because when we had Kleber in the lineup, Duro was there, the defense looked all right, even for that second unit. Hero was just trying to do his best to stay in front of his man. He had a couple good dunks in transition, and that's all you're looking for. You're looking for energy, and you're looking for someone that can create some disruptions. He had an offensive rebound that was great that led to the Maxi Kleber three. So very cool to see Thero. Interesting to see Maxi Kleber in those double big lineups with Ayton and especially Hayes. And I thought that's a look that, I'm curious to see as we move forward in the season. But handled business, and now the Lakers are 10-4. LeBron gets moved back to reassign to the Lakers. And, he's practicing with the team. He's going to see how his body looks or feels tomorrow morning. And he's going to potentially give it a go against Utah. He's marked as questionable. And Gabe Vincent, which is a surprise to me as well, came in as questionable on the injury report also. So LeBron James is coming back this week, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be Sunday, or against the Clippers next Tuesday. We're getting LeBron James back. And the Lakers are 10-4. We're playing with some momentum. I think this was a surprise start. None of us expected 10-4. And we have a really favorable schedule coming up. 2 games against Utah. We got the Clippers. We got the Pelicans again. And then we got the Mavericks, who are slumping. So you're talking about a 4-1-5-0 next 5 games, which would really create margin in terms of win-losses, against the rest of the West. So this is a great time, I think, for LeBron to come back. And we're going to see soon the inevitable question of how does LeBron James fit in with this team, right? We've seen some good play, some sparse games from Luka, some sparse games from Reeves. So we haven't had a full lineup. I mean, the full 14-player roster practice for the first time this season today, which I thought was crazy. And us being 10-4, I think we're in a good spot. But to get on LeBron James, I don't think we need to overthink this. And there's been a lot of chatter on the timeline of how does he fit in? Can he be a third option? Is he okay with Austin Reeves scoring more than him? And it's just too much, I think, assumption that's not needed. Let's break this down really simply. Rui has done an admirable job in his role as the starting 4. Some of the best effective field goal percentage we've seen in his position across the league. He's been scoring. The rebounding we knew wasn't going to be all the way there. But he did what we know Rui can do, and he did it at a high level, right? And that was 15, 16 points, 3 rebounds, some sparing defense, right? It was a good release foul for Austin and Luka. In simple terms, you are now replacing Rui, which I hope it's Rui in the starting lineup. I do want to start with Smart, but we will get to that in a sec. But let's assume you're replacing Rui in that starting lineup with a LeBron James. We don't even need to go over his career averages of what he's done, right? And if we want to, though, let's do this. LeBron Yahoo stats. We're going to go into his stats. Last year, LeBron James averaged 24 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, a steal, 51% from the field, 38% from 3. I can't believe I had to even run down the stat line, but we're adding a top 10, 15 maybe max player to this team to replace what Rui was doing in the starting lineup. Off top, that should already tell you we're going to be okay. We don't need to overthink this. If Rui can fit in with those starters, damn sure better think LeBron is going to be able to and do it at a much higher level. That's 9 more points per game. That's 5 more rebounds per game. The shooting is right there from 3 as well, too. There's so much that he's going to add, and I cannot wait to see this all come together. I mean, first off, these blitzes that Luka is getting on offense. Milwaukee showed a weak double. Portland, teams like that show a lot of ball pressure. And Luka's been doing his thing with Ayton just as a PNR partner and getting into the 4-on-3 game in the half court. Now, when he's orchestrating an offense, teams now need to decide, do I stay home on Luka and allow him to shred up our defense and just hope he's having a bad shooting night? But even then, if he is having a bad shooting night, Austin, let's have you kind of run through the offense and see what kind of looks you can get. LeBron, you're on the other wing. Let's have you show a different look, a different action. Maybe we start in the post and move out from there. There's already options if they go single coverage. Not to mention you have DeAndre Ayton in a PNR, which has been very, very effective. He has been next level efficient. And we are, I believe it was undefeated if DeAndre Ayton scores 20 plus points. And another crazy record when he attempts more than 10 field goals. So already in single coverage, that's already a bad idea with a PNR partner in DeAndre Ayton in the middle with Austin and LeBron on the wings. And then obviously Smart, he's going to be that one player that they decide to move off of to kind of defend that 4-on-3. They're going to cheat off of Smart. But Marcus Smart, if he's on a leash with that three-pointer and his attempts and his volume, he knows how to attack space. He can get to his floater in the paint, or he can create as a third, fourth playmaker in that lineup. So he's not a Vando. Teams can't just say, we're going to leave him open and he's going to do nothing with that space because we're assuming he can't shoot the three at all. But when you get into a 4-on-3 and you have LeBron as your release valve and you're getting LeBron the ball while defenses are shifting and he's able to get into an action off the bounce with Reeves, with Ayton, say less. We know he's an elite playmaker. That's something Rui is not even close to having, right? And that alone is going to take us to that top 5 offense in the league, which we envisioned at the start of the year. Okay, if we're not great on the defensive end, we are going to be a very potent offense. LeBron James, again, to remind everyone, was a big, big anchor and catalyst to that 20-4 run. He was the only constant in that 20-4 record that we have in that stretch last year. LeBron James, I don't even think the league is ready or can comprehend with this new kind of uplift from Reeves and then adding LeBron James to the mix, how dangerous this offense is going to be even in the half court. And I don't think is necessarily, will he have chemistry with the team? Is he going to disrupt what we're doing? I think he's definitely going to amplify what we're doing. I think the question now becomes, how does JJ synergize that trio? And what kind of variations and looks do we get in that half-court offense? But then also, how do we continue to leverage Ayton in those PNRs, right? That's what I'm going to be looking out for is, how does the trio work together on offense? I think we have to get away from that ISO ball, right? What actions do we run in tandem with those three when they're playing together? Because when we stagger lineups, you're going to have 2 of 3 in, or maybe Luka in for one of them, and Austin and LeBron kind of share shifts together until they're back together. But the staggering is going to be key, and I think that's where it's going to be to our advantage against teams' benches. But that synergy, when we break a 4-on-3 with that Luka blitz, what actions do we go into? LeBron gets the ball. What is he looking forward to do? Now he has Ayton in the dunker spot. He's got Austin Reeves on the other wing. There are a variety of options. And I think the biggest thing is we just don't want it to be taking turns. Okay, LeBron, here's yours. Do what you got to do with DeAndre. We're just going to kind of hover around the 3-point line. Austin, it's now your turn. Luka hovering around the 3-point line. LeBron James cross court, right? If JJ can really get that synergy with that trio, with Ayton involved now too, this is going to be a dangerous offense. And the numbers with Rui and Ayton together in the lineup were also not good. So another reason we'll get into of why I don't think he should be the starter and how LeBron is going to amplify that starting group, because Rui's not a playmaker, right? LeBron James is an elite playmaker. Austin Reeves has proven he's elevated into an elite playmaker as well too. So you have 3 very, very high IQ players on the offensive end. And again, my biggest thing is going to be ensuring that DeAndre Ayton continues to get his touches too. Not that we have to force the issue, but he presents a big release valve to all 3 of those players with how efficient he is on the offensive end, how he's able to, be a release valve to our players and be able to hit from a variety of areas around the paint, the mid-range. He's getting that lob connection stronger with Luka, and it's only going to be even better with LeBron James. The off-ball look is going to be interesting, with LeBron, because out of the 3, I do think he is the best off-ball, and he presents so many threats to a defense in what he can do. In the post, slashing, coming in off an off-ball screen from an Ayton to thread through a defense, right? And getting the ball off the bounce, and then kind of creating in the short game with the player in a corner, maybe DeAndre in the dunker spot. So that off-ball movement, the off-ball actions, Marcus Smart playing off ball and not just sitting in a corner, but actually setting off ball picks, getting the defense shifting while Luka's orchestrating up at the top, making life easier for a LeBron and Ayton and in Austin. If we can synergize those actions and figure out what's optimal, and everyone is kind of playing a part, we're not just hovering around the 3-point line, ball watching, that would be my only thing to look out for. And it might take some time to adjust to that. But if there is solid off-ball movement from LeBron, this is going to be the easiest 20 to 25 points he's scored, his average all throughout his career. I think it's going to be that easy for him. I don't think we need to overthink it. And I think he's wanted this. We had a failed experiment with Russell Westbrook, right, where LeBron expressed that he wanted another playmaker, someone that could set the table, make his life easier, right? And granted, the Russ experiment, probably a bad example, but that didn't work, right? We kind of went back away from that. And, we had the Dennises, but now we have Luka, which is the best playmaker, outside of maybe Jokic, best playmaker in the NBA to play alongside him. And we saw a good glimpse of that, of what they could do last year, right? The playoffs were another story. I think there were a lot of other variables affecting that playoff run. But seeing how they work together at the start of this season and how they gel throughout the season, I think is going to be something to watch. And I think it's going to put the league on notice. And with Austin Reeves' jump, it's going to be a tough offense to guard. We're already a tough offense to guard in the half court with Reeves and Luka. We've been a really good half court team. If anything, not only is the half court game going to get amplified with LeBron James, he can still hit the catch and shoot 3, which he's probably going to get open looks because defenses are going to have to figure out what to do if Luka gets past that single coverage, or if they throw a weak double, where's that double going to come from, right? And how is that defense going to have to rotate if they do send that double blitz to Luka or to Austin or to LeBron, right? So I think it's going to be huge. But what's also interesting, which we don't have a lot of right now, is we have been playing in the half court quite a bit. And Luka, that's his game. It's that Harden type that we've seen where he's going to analyze the defense, surgically try to pierce that defense, whether it be a step back three, whether it be a PNR with Ayton, whether it be a drive and a cross court kick out to the corner for three. He's very surgical with his offense. And granted, he can look at the court holistically. It's amazing what he can do. And he's a killer with the cross court passes, which are typically dangerous. But with that said, with LeBron there, I think what we're going to get is maybe more pace too. Austin Reeves likes to push the ball. LeBron likes to get out into the open floor. I think there's going to be ample opportunity to get out on the break, increase those fast break points, play with a little more pace, and that's going to bring variation to the game. Because if we can get out and run, we get stops. LeBron is a much, much better defender than Rui Hachimura. There is no debate there. We're going to get rebounds. That's another player that rebounds at a very high level. Between Luka, LeBron, and Ayton, that's a lot of rebounding. And when LeBron gets that rebound, let's get out and run. Austin's going to push the pace. And LeBron is still an elite finisher. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we can unlock that aspect to our offense too, because it's going to bring variation to the game. We're not just a half-court team. We're a team that can get stops. We can get out in the open floor as well too. And that's what gets teams guessing on, okay, what do we do in terms of lineups now when it's Austin and LeBron together? You know, how do we play and switch our defense when it's Luka out there in the half court with maybe a Hayes, a Rui, a LaRavia, you know, and he's really the focal point. And he's just looking for players that can be release valves while he does his thing and he's going on a burner. So I think those things to consider are very important because we haven't played with a lot of pace to start the season. But I'm hoping that changes because that's going to bring another threat, you know, to our offensive game. And it's just going to make defenses have to think, teams have to think what lineups are optimal out there on the floor. You know, if we go too big and the Lakers run out and do their thing, can we sustain? You know, do we send the blitzes out? Who do we double between LeBron James, Luka, and Austin? Right. And when you can get the defense moving, and that's the biggest thing when we talked about with the synergy between that trio, but if you can get that defense moving and get them shifting even in the half court, that's going to open up so many opportunities. And you're talking about three playmakers that know how to get others the ball and how to create offense for themselves, right? That's the dangerous part. They can create offense for themselves. And you're talking about the finisher this year is not Hayes, it's Ayton, who's demonstrated how he can score and be effective at a very, very high clip. So when that all gels together, it's a very potent offense. And I don't think we're going to have to worry. The only consideration I'd say is we just limit the ISO ball and the take turns. And you know, he saw that, you know, in the first round of the playoffs last year. And there's no doubt in my mind that he hasn't figured this out. He's had a lot of time to kind of think about how do we optimize that trio. And with that center in DeAndre Ayton there, I think there's a lot to unlock. And I'm very excited to see how we put this all together and go on this real run with our team back. You know, so LeBron James, get it out of your mouth that he's going to disrupt things. He's going to make us worse. Just boil it down to something simple. And that's where we get into the starters. I think Smart is the guy that needs to remain in the starting lineup when LeBron James comes back and we need to move Rui to the bench. I submitted a poll on X and it was over 75%, 50 plus votes that said Smart should remain in the starting lineup. And if you're in this conversation right now, drop a comment. If you're on YouTube, drop that comment and let's hear your thoughts. Who do you want starting? Because I think that's the bigger question, not LeBron James coming back and what that does to our synergy and our chemistry. That's not what I'm worried about. It's the lineups that we need to be optimal. And to me, even though Rui has shot so well from the mid-range, from three, He has been great. I just don't think he's going to have that same amount of shots to take advantage of when LeBron is back. And if he's in the starting lineup, I think he's just going to be resorted to someone that's just in the corner. And he's not going to bring you that defensive presence. We've seen what he's like defensively at the 3 spot, and it's not great. It's quicker players. He can't stay in front of them. I mean, his defense was adequate as a starting 4, which we knew there was going to be a better uptick because he's guarding players that match his defensive style, right? So you don't want to take away that defensive edge that we are getting with a Marcus Smart, right? I think he is the player that can guard another team's best player. He's demonstrated that, which takes pressure off of Reeves and it takes pressure off of LeBron. And, you need some perimeter defense out there to make sure that you're not funneling everything to the paint and putting pressure on DeAndre Ayton. And from an offensive standpoint, Smart hasn't been bad. He's got to rein in his 3-point volume. 10 threes in the last 2 games. I think it was against the Pelicans where he went 1 for 10. I don't care what situation we're in. There is no game where Marcus Smart should be shooting 10 threes in a game. I think he can attack space well. He's shown that he has that floater game in the paint. He can finish at the rim. With him in the starting lineup and LeBron as the starting 4, it reins in Marcus Smart's offensive potential, right? He's got to play a certain role, and it's to ensure that defenses aren't being lazy while he's kind of in the corner camping out. He needs to make those plays, whether it be an off-ball screen, whether it be a slash on the baseline, or whether it be when he does get in the ball in the corner and he's open. Yes, you can take a couple threes, see how you're feeling it, but if you're not making them, you attack that space, get the defense shifting, and you get it out to your release valves again in Luka, in Austin, and LeBron. Very dynamic, even with a Smart who's limited in offense, but not that limited. And he's still a playmaker as well, too. And now he's the 4th playmaker on the team. That's a great situation to be in when he's the 4th playmaker. And again, Rui in the starting lineup, I have a feeling, and it came up on the timeline, on that poll that JJ is going to try Rui out. Just he has an affinity for Rui. We've seen him in the starting lineup all throughout last year, even though we wanted DFS starting. But I think we might try it. But the way to go, in my opinion, is Marcus Smart. He fills in that gap, that 5th starter spot really well. His defense with the rebounding that LeBron James is going to bring that Rui did not have, along with Ayton and Luka, I think is going to help us close out a lot more possessions. And you need that guy that's going to be tenacious and set the tone across the team. It's contagious. We've seen it. When Rui took a charge against Wemby, when Jake LaRavia is diving on the floor against Portland, Smart needs to be that starter. I was listening to some pods saying, we were flirting with maybe Jake LaRavia. I think he's better off the bench. He's been struggling a bit. He will get it together. He's a good connector piece. I think he's going to be a great piece to connect lineups when we do stagger the trio and Ayton, right? So now you move Rui to the bench, and it's Rui, Jake LaRavia, Hayes, and Gabe Vincent. That's a much more formidable squad to stagger in with your starters, right? You still have Connect, who's been playing better basketball as of late. You got Thero that can play some spot minutes. You still have Vando, right? His minutes may decrease, but Vando is still out there with the Kleber that you can bring in, when Hayes is playing, and we don't necessarily want Vando in the game because he doesn't present any type of offense. So we have some variation now when you have this full roster, but I think the scoring punch that Rui can still bring, because he's going to be playing with a Luka or Austin in these staggered lineups. I think he could be a 6th man that can relieve LeBron a lot quicker in a quarter than usual, because he's had those starter minutes. He's had continuity with Luka and Austin. I think that's going to be great for LeBron. We can spell him, give him rest. and make sure he's optimal in the minutes he does play, and not miss too much of a beat when Rui comes in and he gets to play against other teams' second units. And now there's the question. I mean, we've seen in the past how Rui responds to going to the bench. A lot less engaged. That offense isn't all there. Just overall effort and activity goes down. It's a contract year for him. I don't think this is going to mess too much with his minutes, because if he's playing well in those staggered lineups, there's no reason why we couldn't close with him if that's what it took. And if he's playing well and he's having synergy and in a rhythm, there's that opportunity. But having that scoring punch off the bench, even if his scoring average decreases from 16 to 10, 11, you're adding 20 to 25 with LeBron. And I don't think it's going to impact Austin and Luka's scoring or Ayton's too much. I think life gets easier for Ayton. We just have to make sure we involve him. But you're adding essentially from Rui 16 points per game right now, even if his average decreases to 10, 11, 12, you're adding another 20 to 25. That's 32 to 35 more points, which is like a 20-point net difference from just Rui being in the lineup. That's insane. That's insane. Even if we shave off a few points from Luka and Austin, having that capability in the starting lineup, especially with another playmaker and a rebounder, is going to make us that much more potent as a team. And I think our defense is going to get a lot better too. LeBron James, again, is a much, much, much better defender than Rui Hachimura. So I'm hoping with LeBron there, giving Ayton the support. I mean, he was our anchor for a lot of times last year. And there was games in Minnesota in that first round of the playoffs last year where we were playing against Minnesota. That game 4, LeBron was the defense. And now he's going to get, some support with Ayton and some support with Smart on the perimeter. That's huge. And the impact of that is insane. So I do think, in my opinion, Rui has to get relegated to the bench. And it's only going to help our team. And I hope he sees the bigger picture. If he's still playing well, he's going to get minutes. He's going to get his shot attempts. Because to be quite frank, if he's starting, how many shot attempts is he really going to get? He's going to be a release valve. Like, when you're running your actions, it's Luka, Austin, and LeBron with the PNR and Ayton as your primaries, right? So I think we don't take advantage of what he's so good at with him in the starting lineup. And that offensive effectiveness that he's had, we're not taking full advantage of. So him coming off the bench and being in the lineups where it's maybe just Austin and LeBron, maybe just Luka, right, is going to be advantageous for him. He's going to be a center point. He's going to be playing against defenses that are second units, right? Not necessarily a team's starting unit, which I think can bode well. And, I think he can still pick up right where he left off from, the starting lineup and apply that to the bench. And now we become a deeper team, where our star players can have minutes where they're resting, on the bench, and we can still hold our own. Gabe Vincent coming back, as much as he's been injured, I think is someone that can still provide defense and some level of control, right? He knows his role. Hopefully he comes back shooting the ball well like he did in the preseason. But, we're talking lineups. Rui being the first man off the bench for LeBron, maybe that's when you slide in a Jake LaRavia a few minutes later. And then ultimately, when you bring Gabe back, you can figure out when do you put Braun back in, when do you put Austin Reeves back in. But that's a very competent lineup structure. I think, Luka, Gabe, Jake LaRavia, Rui, maybe an Ayton or a Hayes. That's a much better lineup than what we've been throwing out, with the Daltons, going deep in our bench with Bronny sometimes, Nick Smith Jr., right? Lineups that just are not formidable. we'll get a lot more formidable with LeBron coming back and ultimately Gabe coming back too. So again, my take is I think Rui should go to the bench. It seems like a lot of people do agree with that. We'll see what JJ does. I wouldn't be surprised if he started Rui a couple games and then ultimately went back to Smart, but you need that tenacity on the defensive end, and that's something Rui just doesn't bring. And I think Smart is a great complement to our trio and DeAndre Ayton in terms of what he offers on both ends of the floor. We can really stick with his strengths on the offensive end and not have him do as much as he's had to do because we've had such depleted lineups. So I think that's an uptick and an unlock there, so he becomes more efficient. But Laker Nation, I'm excited. I'm excited to get LeBron back. I'm excited to see what he does with the trio, how he integrates. It's not going to be perfect right away, but he's watching. He is watching. And he sees this team is 10-4 right now. He hasn't played one game. Luka and AR haven't played a number of games. So when you're coming into this, and he said that after practice today, where he was like, I haven't had time to go on the road with the team, to gel with them, to understand the new players, right? But that's something that he's going to focus on and get up to speed with. But he's definitely seeing the chemistry, and he's already talking about ways where he can amplify that team chemistry on the court from just what he's seen. And I think that's going to be very scary. He's gotten 14 games to see how this team operates. What spots does DeAndre like? Where is he good in the role? What is Luka and Austin doing that's different this year, right? How does Marcus Smart's game look like? He's a savant. He studies these things. His IQ is high. And the fact that he's gotten this much time to kind of review and take that all in and now implement and execute with the team, I think is going to be great. And we have a very nice stretch of games where we can really blow this open as it gets ramped up to when we get into a much more difficult December, January, second half of the season. So I'm excited. We better not blow this Utah game. I hope we come out ready, engaged, pack them out, move to 11-4, continue to create distance to that seventh place team and just continue to solidify ourselves in that top four. And, we'll see what trades come down the line and stuff, but LeBron James is going to do what LeBron James does. And there's LeBron James haters. There's those that, feel like he hasn't been, the most team friendly. He's been excited on the bench in a lot of these games. And I won't lie, during the offseason, when all of that PR nonsense was coming out of he needs to analyze the team, he wants to play for a winner. I think all of that, it was off-putting and kind of put him off. Like you just re-signed for $50 million, man. What more do you want? The salary cap works the way the salary cap works with the aprons. We can't do anything else. We brought as much as we could with the money that we had. And we brought some quality players with Jake Ayton and Marcus Smart. And we're winning now. So everything is dispelled, right? It's not so much of a question is LeBron going to disrupt the team? I think he's going to do everything he can to make sure he integrates seamlessly. And LeBron knows the headlines. He is ego-driven like any alpha is. He's not going to be the one to rock this ship. That's all I'll say. Like, he may have wanted the season to go a certain way or thought it would go a certain way. So he had some leverage or, he was maybe that savior back. But this team is doing what they need to do. Now, let's not get it twisted. For us to even talk about being in that contender level, which I don't think we are just yet, to be at that level, it definitely includes LeBron in that conversation, right? And it's going to include a trade down the line that Rob needs to complete to make this team whole. But LeBron James is very much a part of this. And if I'm him and I'm seeing Luka and Austin torch teams the way they're torching them, I have a smile on my face because teams are already having a difficult time with those two. And him added to the mix makes just things even more difficult. It's very hard to scheme when you have a trio of that caliber, that all three are playmakers, all three have basketball IQ, all three can hit the three-point shot, all three can hit the midi, all three can get to the lane, all three can pass. Very difficult. And this is probably the biggest unlock JJ needs to bring again. And if he can get this thing working in the right way, get us to a top 5 offense and let us be adequate on the defensive end. I'm hoping we go from the bottom 10 to maybe the 15 to 20 range. And then you hope that trade, we can get to 15, and that trade that we ultimately do gets us to that flirting with top 10. So if you're a top 5 in one category and a top 10 in another, flirting with it, that's when you kind of get to that contender status, right? Against the OKCs, the Denvers, even Houston's been playing well, right? But there is a lot that LeBron James is going to bring. And I think he's going to put these defenses in a tizzy. And I can't wait to see it. I hope he comes back tomorrow and get some run, get some minutes in. Let Luka and Austin handle the rest. Get your reps up. Maybe sit out Sunday. And then we circle back against the Clippers on Tuesday. But to me, this team is a lot better than what we were, in the second half of the year last year. And granted, our defense was on point. DFS was a big part of it. I think we can reclaim a lot of what we were doing in the second half of the year and now amplify it with the players that we brought in, with Ayton now in the fold, having Jake LaRavia as a connector piece, getting Gabe back. The defense is not going to be perfect, but, LeBron James is going to add quite a bit to that end as well. So, Laker Nation, this is going to be the next step or chapter in our season. I think it's going to be a good chapter. We're 10-4. We have a favorable schedule in the next 5. I'm definitely, at minimum, hoping we end up 14-5 after this 5-game stretch. When you're 14-5, 2021, we started off, I think it was 21-6. You're flirting with that pace, with that trend. And that was a special year that got riddled by injuries. Maybe we have some different conversations at game 20, game 21. Like, okay, this team's got it. Rob, where you at? But this live was to dispel any types of thoughts around LeBron James is going to ruin this team. I think Trevor Lane said it best. We're getting a player that's coming to a 10-4 team that's famous at basketball, which means he's really good at it. So you're adding a really good player to a good team. Let's not overthink this. And that good player is replacing a Rui or a Smart. You're taking that player over both of them any day of the week. So this is gonna work. Might take a little bit of adjustment in terms of offensive actions like we talked about and how that synergizes between the trio. They'll make it work. There's too much IQ there for it to not work. We're seeing stuff that already, if Luka had another outlet, another threat on the floor, it just makes the game that much more open for him. And when you're getting teams second-guessing the blitz, who to double team, depending on who's hot or scoring that night, that's when you start to make them shift and make teams do unnatural things on defense, getting them out of their rhythm. And that's a huge unlock. And again, the defensive rebounding is going to go up. You're bringing in a player that averages 8 rebounds a game for his career. So that was already a gap. And half of defense is closing out possessions with a rebound, right? You can play the best defense if you want. If they get an offensive board, what good was that defense? So let's start there. Let's be an elite defense rebounding team. Let Marcus Smart set the tone. Let Reeves and LeBron follow. We know when Ayton is engaged, he can also be a difference maker on the defensive end, contest shots, even block shots. We saw that at the end of the San Antonio game. He had 2 huge blocks in transition. that allowed us to take a lead. So you mix all that together and you get the synergy together because our chemistry is on cloud nine right now. You start to get all that together, you create something very powerful. So, Laker Nation, I'm looking forward to it. Like it or hate it, drop a comment and debate it. Let me know your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, I go by AO. This channel is for fans, by fans. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, tap in with me. I try to go live post-game with some friends. We just like to talk Laker basketball. We do the 1 minute hitter recaps, hit you with some highlight reels. But I just love talking Lakers basketball, man. So tap in with me. Let's debate. Let's have discourse. Let's have conversation. And yeah, tap in. Take care. Peace.